Howdy friends, Dave here, davesguitarplanet.com. Another one of my guitar stories. This time I've got a Martin DC1E. The D stands for dreadnought shape, the large acoustic shape. C stands for cutaway, and E is electronics. And the 1 means it's the very plain style. Martin came out with this 1 series for people that didn't want to spend an arm and a leg on a Martin. So there's just a tiny binding, fake tortoiseshell binding around the edge, plastic, and a very simple tortoiseshell pick guard here. But it's got a solid spruce top, 3-ply mahogany sides, solid mahogany back, mahogany neck, rosewood bridge, rosewood fingerboard with the dot inlays, piece of rosewood over the front of the head here with a kind of a gold printed or inlaid name. I've had this since 1999, I guess. I had been living in Japan for 10 years in Tokyo, teaching English and stuff, and I had an ovation there. It was my second ovation. And when I got back to the States, I thought it was time to get a wooden American-made guitar. So I bought a car in upstate New York and I drove into New York City. First I got to Staten Island, where there used to be a famous guitar store called Mandolin Brothers. They had 13 rooms of acoustic instruments, and I spent the night there and went in, and I just got, as I always say, sore fingers and confused. They had one room of Taylors and one room of Martins and a bunch of kind of boutique guitars like Bourgeois and Larrivee and not Gallagher, but Collings. So I played a bunch, but nothing really stood out for me. So the next day I took the ferry into New York City. I went to Matt Umanov in Greenwich Village. He did have a Gallagher, which is one of the guitars that Doc Watson plays. And I've been kind of getting into that Doc Watson style. And the Merle Travis style. So I wanted a guitar where I could get a good thuddy bass. And I wanted to be able to use my thumb over the backside of the neck, like a lot of the finger pickers do. Merle will actually get two strings. Sometimes you get great big hands. So I think the next day I went to Sam Ash and Rudy's on the old West 48th Street up near Times Square, famous street, and in both places they had more Taylors, but for some reason at the time the Taylors seemed kind of soulless, like they were a little bit too perfect. Bob Taylor, who started the Taylor Guitar Company, was one of the first, I think, to really get into the computer numeric control CNC milling machines. So everything was like really perfect, but they just didn't seem to have the soul. Finally, I walked across the street from Rudy's to the old Manny's shop, which was kind of a storied, legendary place. Guys like Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles and Paul Simon shopped there. They had 8x10 glossy pictures all over the walls. And they had a very small room of acoustics, and this one was hanging on the wall, I think, and I took it down, and within about 15 seconds I knew this was the one for me, because it had a real balanced sound, but a really good thudding bass. And I bought it for around $1,100. and I didn't care the fact that it was real simple looking. It was a boon for me, and I've had it ever since. But the neck, when I got it, was a little bit too big for me my hands are kind of small, to get my thumb around the other side. And actually, when I use my thumb for the bass string, I often just use kind of the edge of the thumb to push it down. So I found a guy up near Rochester that did work on guitars, and I brought him this JB player that I'll show you another time, a real simple acoustic, but I really loved the neck on it. It was real small, and I could get my thumb around it. So I had him shave down the neck, and he just left it plain mahogany with no stain or any finish. But he didn't get it quite small enough. So just a few months ago, I took it to a guy here in Bangkok, where I've been living for the last 12 years, and had him take off a little bit more. And he took off a little more down around here. And now it's very similar to that JB player neck. So pretty happy with it now. Actually, a lot of times I will tune it down a whole step and then put the capo on the 2nd fret or higher. And that's a trick that I talk about in another video that makes the strings slinkier. Now you're playing frets that are closer together, and the action even gets lower when you use a capo. And you don't have to stretch your arm out so far. So it's a real great trick that I do a lot. I don't play slide very often, but I found it in a drawer today. But I should. I would love to get into it. So this is a very versatile guitar with a pick. So it's around I don't know what the year exactly is, but I bought it in 1999 or 2000, so maybe it was a 98 or something like that. Martin DC1E. Oh, by the way, the name Dreadnought was originated by Martin, and in 1916 a company, Oliver Ditson Company, requested that they make a big guitar like this, so they decided to call it Dreadnought after an English warship. It was really big, and so they named it Dreadnought, like don't be afraid, Dreadnought. And so because it was big, and this was a big guitar at the time, now it's really standard, but so that's where the Dreadnought name came from. Alrighty, onward and upward. See you next time.